We're getting you detailed coverage of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Brisbane in Australia. MEA spokesperson Syed Akbaruddin is addressing the press. Let's listen.
We welcomed him as a Prime Minister of a very friendly country. He also narrated several anecdotes of his own childhood and growing up, where which indicated familiarity between the Saudi royal family and India. He wished Prime Minister well, and Prime Minister said that we are increasingly inclined to cooperate with Saudi Arabia on a variety of issues. Crown Prince Salman said that that Saudi Arabia is ready to cooperate with India on all aspects, and we will take the relationship forward. There are delegations from Saudi Arabia coming to India on specific areas, and they will work on how to proceed further on this. So these were the two bilaterals, apart from what I've told you previously. If you have anything else, we'll answer you either on the G-20 or on anything else.
So has the PM spoken to people back home about the German language issue? Has he spoken specifically to the minister?
Well, the Prime Minister is aware of the situation there. He obviously has been briefed before the meeting, so he is aware of the circumstances in which these were taken. These were taken in accordance with the judicial pronouncement, where the issue of third language being from a foreign country was raised. Of course, there are other mechanisms whereby, even which have been clarified in India, that foreign languages can be learned by children in colleges, but not as third language, but as any other language. And Prime Minister is aware of this, so is Chancellor Merkel aware of it. And I think the only request is to work out. There's no specificity in terms of what language it should be, but that Germany would be grateful if India can work out a system whereby children in Indian schools can learn German. And as I said, Prime Minister himself said that it is important for young Indian children to learn as many languages as possible, because it would help them in their growth and their integration and job opportunities outside, as well as growing as individuals.
As I already told you, I think, but probably I didn't mention it specifically, is on the remittances. There has been a very significant progress made in this meeting, that remittances by our Indian workers who work in the Middle East mainly, but in other places, who send the largest amount of money back home, $70 billion. No other country sends as much. And that was attracting bank charges of as high as 10% in many countries. So it now agreed to bring it down below 5%. And we were still insisting that it should be with a timeline of 2016, but at least we are progressing on that.
Yeah. As a priority.
As a priority. This is taken as a number one priority on that. Sorry?
It's a commitment.
G20. Because all these countries, mainly other countries who are responding, once they do it, I think the rest of the world will follow. And this will be significantly help our workers. Below 5%. You know, because what happens is actually, as you know, just imagine $70 billion, 10% is $7 billion. And you know, $7 billion FDI if we are going to get, we'll be very happy. But it's $7 billion we are losing.
We are getting 70.
No, not 70 billion, 10% is 7 billion.
Sorry, so what was the time frame given? By 2016, they do it.
This has been, the timeline is something which is done. The second part is a very important part, is on financial inclusion. And there is already a talk of financial inclusion. And they are all very happy about India's Prime Minister's initiative of making this new Jan Dhan Yojana, which also has been very well appreciated. This has been taken as a priority, and enhanced financial inclusion as a priority. So this is again one of the very significant two other elements which I didn't mention.
What is the biggest takeaway for India?
All of this, you know, if you really look at it, if the growth happens, India benefits. If employment increases, India benefits. If you open up the service sector related issues, India benefits. The remittances, very good. On energy, we are going to be the single largest consumer of energy by 2032. So therefore, on energy markets, to bring in transparency, to bring in accountability, we are going to have a dialogue on gas markets globally to find out how these markets really function, because you know there are some state players who operate in the oil and gas market, which distorts the real operation of the market forces. Therefore, this has been in India's interest if you can bring in the energy efficiency is a very significant another development. And as I mentioned earlier, our Prime Minister's new leadership idea in terms of creating a new renewable energy related global center would benefit India immensely. See, actually speaking, now we are at a stage, because we are all mainly Indians, we are at a stage where any global development will benefit India more because we are acquiring a critical mass. We are the largest growing economy. Therefore, all these different countries who are already developed and therefore in a way they are saturated, which is very evident from the fact that Europe is now going down, US is not growing as much, and therefore the emerging markets have grown so much, and that's how in fact the G20 was created, because they realized that the more economic muscle lies outside the G7 or G8 countries. So that shows that any significant development of any kind, India would obviously benefit, but we are taking not just waiting in the wings for the benefit to accrue, but we are taking a proactive steps, giving ideas. So all this will largely benefit India, and we are not in a way taking any encumbrances on ourselves.
Just 1 minute, 1 minute. Yeah.
Sir, what was the reaction of G-20 nations on the black money which India raised?
See, reaction in a sense, we are demanding it very strongly, because we feel that it's a legitimately belonging to the country where they should have been taxed. But because of this, so we are taken on. That's how I'm saying this is a very significant sentence, which was added, as Mr. Akbar said, at the Prime Minister's response to the Prime Minister's intervention, very strong intervention on the subject. This had to be added.
I mean, the response, let me just try and add to it. You'll understand the importance that today's intervention had, in the sense that the original draft did not contain language which was fully satisfactory to us. Subsequently, after Prime Minister spoke, several other countries also echoed this sentiment, and I can offhand from my recollection, there were certainly some of the BRICS countries like Brazil and like South Africa and several others spoke in favor of that. Following which, the Secretariat then worked out on language which was shown to us and finally approved as a new insertion, purely in response to the events of today and Prime Minister's own intervention there.
Can we take it in large, because we have another bilateral?
Sure, sir. Mr. Prabhu, you said that there was a strong intervention by the Prime Minister on black money, and you gave details about that. But this is perhaps the first time that at a global stage, Prime Minister linked it with terror. He said that this is very important in tackling terror globally. Could you elaborate briefly on what the Prime Minister said, and also was there support from other countries as well?
That was not here. He spoke in ASEAN.
Yeah, no, I think what you are saying is this transparency element relating to not only in terms of tax benefits, but also as effort to ensure that elements who are involved in drug trafficking, in money laundering, and in terrorism, etc. It's basically transparency will help a country in various aspects. Yes, tax is one aspect, but this is a new, as I indicated even yesterday, these are new elements which are now added on to the agenda of transparency, that apart from tax benefits in terms of availability of our tax authorities, they will also be available to our other authorities. And this is a significant move in terms of our national security. So while there is an economic element to our national security, there is also another threat perception which will be tackled by these transparency measures. I hope that clarifies. So if you don't mind, we will end this discussion now. And if you have, okay, last by Janardhan.
This every country is supposed to give a plan to G20 on what reforms or what additional policy measures they will take to contribute to this additional 2% growth world output. So what has India said on that?
Actually speaking, when it was 2% target was agreed, we are actually working more than that. In fact, our contribution is significantly higher. But if you want to, generally, it's not part of the plan that we are going to submit. But our initiatives domestically, like Make in India, making financial inclusion, creating infrastructure facilities, all of this will contribute significantly to that. So this is our domestic agenda, which will, in any case, will benefit our Indian citizens. And in the process, because we are contributing significantly to our own output, it should be calculated as part of the global output in any case because we are part of a G20 country. But all this is in any case part of a domestic agenda.
I just add, we have, you see, in the first budget this year, the largest component was for infrastructure. There have been so many new initiatives, all of which has gone into our growth strategy. And the Brisbane Action Plan, which is the additional document, mentions the significant infrastructure initiative of India. Because, I mean, as you are aware of the budgetary proposals, all of which were carried into the growth strategy of India, as the Sherpa was saying.
So, if you have nothing further to end, I just wanted to thank you very much. We end the G20 part of it with, as you can see, smiles on our faces because of success, which is of an unprecedented nature. If you go back to our initial briefing and see from there where we are today, we have achieved substantially or overwhelmingly all our goals. These goals were in terms of outcomes of the communique, as we've just mentioned to you, terms of transparency, in terms of subsequent developments relating to the India-US understanding on the WTO, as well as on remittances related issues. As far as growth, we are in the forefront of growth. So if you add up all these elements, it's been an extremely successful visit. But in addition to that, I think there is a personality issue to this, and you can see that in terms of the number of leaders, in terms of the number of delegates, in terms of the requests for meetings, our Prime Minister scored very high. So we are all grateful to you for covering that, and we go back with a successful G20 participation. Thank you very much.
Just let me add to Akbar that but for you, many people in back home wouldn't have known what is G20. So thank you very much for contributing to this process of letting people know, and therefore I am very happy. Otherwise people would have said it's only G19. Not G20. Thank you very much.
Just to add, the Brisbane Action Plan mentions two emerging markets as growing strongly, China and India. Only two by name.
All right, that was the all-important briefing by the Ministry of External Affairs. Also present there was India's Sherpa, essentially saying that it was a very successful visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi as far as India and its representation at the Group of 20 Nations Summit in Brisbane in Australia, the 9th edition of it, is concerned.